Hey guys, whoa, we have some good lighting in here. That's because this is not a movie review filmed in my car, this is a top 10 list. I will not have a new movie review to you guys this weekend, so I figured we'll do a top 10 list because everybody seems to enjoy those. I enjoy making them, you guys seem to watch them a lot. Win-win, I guess. And it's the beginning of the year, so there aren't that many great movies that have been coming out, so I decided let's count down the top 10 best of something, because I've seen a lot of bad movies in the past month, so we'll count down some good movies. Namely, the top 10 best movies that have come out from 2010 until now. I've grown up watching a lot of these movies, so lots to pick from. And I will say this is the hardest top 10 list I've had to make. There are probably 7-8 movies that could have been on this list but aren't. And as always, these are my subjective picks. They aren't going to be your picks. Leave your picks in the comments down below, though. That being said, let's get started with my top 10 favorite movies from 2010 to 2015, or now around. Starting off with number 10, we have Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of those, Marvel movies that does its own take on Star Wars, but I mean, those are like a dime a dozen nowadays, right? Wrong. This movie was so original, it was great. It took these characters, the Avengers movies, they take one movie, then combine them all together and hope that the characters kind of mesh together. Guardians of the Galaxy, it takes 5 characters, sets them up, develops them, completes their arc in one movie. This was extremely impressive. It puts all these characters together. They work so well together. I love their chemistry. The movie's funny. It's action-packed. It's emotional. Guardians is my favorite Marvel movie to date. I can't wait for the sequel. It just shows that Marvel is dominating this decade with awesome superhero movies like The Guardians. At number 9, we have a movie that's very different from Guardians of the Galaxy, and that is Midnight in Paris. I'm not a huge Woody Allen nut or anything, but I love Midnight in Paris. Owen Wilson stars as the lead in this movie, and he's very non-comical, very relaxed hero in this movie. He's not spewing out one-liners every other line. And the only star bigger than Owen Wilson in this movie, though, is Paris. Because Paris is shot so beautifully, both in the present day and in the 1920s. I love seeing the artists and the authors of the 1920s in the city. They're really cool to see. They've got a lot of great character actors playing famous authors, famous painters. I love seeing Owen Wilson interact with them. It's a very simple movie, but it's a very well-executed movie. Give it a shot if you haven't checked it out yet. It's very artsy, but definitely very relatable. Then moving on at number 8, we have the only 2015 movie on this list, and that is The End of the Tour. The End of the Tour is one of these movies that just shows a wide scope of human emotion. It has Jason Segel and Jesse Eisenberg in it as 2 authors, and you just see these guys communicating with each other so well. The script is well written, but these guys' performances also convey a lot of emotion. Like, you walk away from this movie thinking it was very subtle, but it has a really big impact on you. This movie definitely has a lot to say about literature, about authors, about how people interact in general. It's not a movie for everybody, but it's definitely a small movie that I enjoyed a lot. In terms of James Bond's directed movies, though, I will say I like his other small movie, The Spectacular Now, just a little bit more. And oh hey, at number 7 we have The Spectacular Now. The Spectacular Now is one of these movies where the acting just steals the show, because you've got Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley, and they're both in high school, and ultimately it's a high school romance movie, but there's so much more going on in the movie, because you see these characters, Sutter and Amy, and they're both these conflicted human beings, just these personal struggles going on in their own life, but they both come together in such a beautiful way. You love seeing genuine human interactions like that in a movie like this. Like The End of the Tour, the directing is absolutely flawless. It's such beautiful direction. It juxtaposes depression and optimism really well, and you feel like a movie shouldn't be able to do that, but this movie does. It's a really impressive feat to walk away from a high school romance movie and feel like you've seen something new, but The Spectacular Now absolutely does it. And at number 6, we have Prisoners. Prisoners is this really dark psychological thriller that came out in 2013, and you only get a good psychological thriller every 10-15 years, something like that, but Prisoners is absolutely one of them. This movie is thrilling, it's suspenseful, there's not a lot of action in the movie, but you're definitely on the edge of your seat the whole time. You just want to know who took these kids, what's Hugh Jackman doing next, is Gyllenhaal gonna crack the case? It's all very, very heart-pounding, and it's a depressing movie. Like The End of the Tour, it's not a movie for everybody, but it's definitely a movie you'll walk away from and recognize that movie was really well made and really well written. For me, a fan of well-written movies, I just love Prisoners. Speaking of movies that take a simple premise and turn them on their head, we have at number 5, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I love coming-of-age movies, and The Perks of Being a Wallflower is kind of in that vein of John Hughes' 80s movies, only it incorporates a lot more human drama. This movie is depressingly sad at times, but it also has a lot of just laughing really hard humor in it. The Perks of Being a Wallflower has characters and places that you will recognize if you've ever been to high school or you've really ever lived in life. So many of these situations feel relatable, so many of these friends in the movie feel relatable, so many of the conflicts that these kids go to feel relatable. The acting is absolutely great too. I can't tell which of the 3 leads is my favorite. And the movie's really well adapted from the book. If you want like the extended edition to the movie, you can listen to the audiobook. It's like the 6-hour version of the movie. But nevertheless, Perks of Being a Wallflower is a movie that will really just hit you right in the heart. It's one of those movies you'll cry, you'll laugh. It's a full rounded theater experience, even if it is like a little bit cliche. And at number 4, guys, I do not cry often in movies, but Toy Story 3, yeah, that did it. Toy Story 3 isn't just one of the best animated movies of the past 10 years, but it combines visual storytelling, action, character characters that you care about, all into one amazing, amazing film. This movie is a fantastic end to the Toy Story trilogy, but it continues the characters that you've cared about from these past few movies, and it ends their stories so well. I know they're doing a Toy Story 4, but Toy Story 3 was just such a fantastic end to these characters' arcs. Yet the movie still stands on its own as a fantastic story of them going to the daycare, them trying to escape from the daycare, and it has these themes of relevance, existence, and purpose all in a kid's movie. That's insane. This movie had me tearing up by the end of it. You guys know what scene I'm talking about. And just for that scene alone, I'll forget the whole reset Buzz Lightyear Spanish suave guy type thing. Alright guys, we are now at the top 3. At number 3 we have The Social Network. The Social Network is one of these movies that could be completely overinflated because it's trying to tell this huge story of how Facebook was created, but it's really not. The Social Network barely even focuses on the creation of Facebook. It more focuses on Mark Zuckerberg's relationships with other characters. You get an interesting look into his life, how his brain works, his relationships with regular people like Eduardo. The dialogue works so well for these characters and this story. Aaron Sorkin really knew how to tailor words to each of these characters, and each of them says exactly what they should be saying at the exact right time. The movie's paced really well, goes by really fast. Ultimately, your eyes are on the screen the entire time. This movie is magnetic. You just want to see what happens next and what happens next in these guys' lives. It's an exciting movie where nothing blows up. And Social Network, like I said, directing is great. Script is completely fantastic. Acting is awesome. It's one of my favorite movies ever, like some of the other movies on this list. And it's an important movie. It's one of those movies that like you watch and you realize this movie's saying where our society's going from here. And that's really cool when a movie can kind of bring in real life implications like that. Alright, at number 2 we have X-Men Days of Future Past. For me right now, The Dark Knight and X-Men Days of Future Past are on like even playing ground for best comic book movie of all time, but I don't think that's really fair since X-Men Days of Future Past isn't really a comic book movie. X-Men Days of Future Past is a time travel movie, it's a heist movie, it's a political movie, but more than anything else, it's a human movie about choice. X-Men Days of Future Past brings together all these different characters who all fit into the movie. Nobody feels wasted in this movie. The villains are all perfectly cast, the heroes are all perfectly cast, everybody has a role in this movie, and it's all about choice, whether or not you can actually change the future, whether or not you actually have an impact on the world. And that's interesting, especially like in real life. I mean, you can relate to a lot of the stuff in this movie. There's emotional parts of this movie. There's parts where like I'm almost in tears. There's parts of this movie that feel just really heavy and really important, and you're watching it and you're still getting the amusement out of all the action that's going on screen. It's an entertaining movie, but it's also a smart thinking movie. I'm baffled by how well this movie was pulled off. It's one of those movies that just has so much going on in it, but it all just works so beautifully well together. The end of this movie is one of my favorite ends to any movie ever, although I guess the entire movie is one of my favorite anythings to any movie ever. Days of Future Past is a movie that's absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to see Apocalypse this year. It's a movie that really hit me, and like I said, one of the best movies ever made at this point. So says me. And number 1. If you guys know me, you probably know what this movie is going to be because my favorite movie of all time has come out after 2010. So at number 1 of all time for me, and at number 1 on this list, is Silver Linings Playbook. I've talked a lot about directing, script, acting, and like all the reviews that I do, but more importantly than any of those is how a movie makes you feel when you come out of it. And Silver Linings Playbook is one of these movies that just, you come out of and you feel optimistic. You feel good about life when you walk out of Silver Linings Playbook. And yeah, that's kind of cheesy to say, but it's true. And you realize everybody in this movie is crazy, like out of their mind, and you start thinking maybe everybody in real life is crazy and out of their mind, but even if that's true, we're all still happy with all the people that we're with. We all still make great memories together. You just watch Silver Linings Playbook and you feel good about like your small everyday life. Going back to things like acting, directing, and script, the acting in this movie, Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, favorite on-screen chemistry ever. Bradley Cooper in this movie is my favorite performance in any movie because he combines deadpan with open heart so well. Like, he just has a blank face for so much of the movie, but he brings so much emotion. Jennifer Lawrence is great in her role. I honestly, all the roles in this movie, supporting cast is great. Every single thing in this movie just lined up perfectly. The script is the most realistic script I've ever heard in my life. Silver Linings Playbook, it's how people talk to each other. The script flows so well. It goes from this point to this point to this point to this point. This movie is just genuine. It feels like it's a classic. It has a great romance in it. It has great characters that you root for. It has fantastic performances, great writing, very simple, very needful direction, fantastic themes. It's a movie that has very high stakes for a very human story, and that's what the whole thing is. It's a human story. I love movies like Silver Linings Playbook because it takes a very simple premise, but it just executes it so well. It's movies like Silver Linings Playbook that make me love movies, and if you guys haven't seen it yet, I definitely implore you to do so, and watch the other 9 on this list. But guys, as I said at the beginning, those are just my picks for my 10 best since 2010, so be sure to leave yours in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. I'll be keeping you guys up to date with a bunch of top 10 lists, new movie reviews every weekend except for this weekend because I will be away, and head on over to mymoviethoughts.com for more posts from me. I'll be posting a lot over there in type form. Links to all of those in the description below, and as always, thanks for watching, guys.